The first of the characteristics of a good father is the characteristic of love. We couldn't really begin to look at the fatherhood of God without thinking firstly about the Father's love for us. But in starting there, we're probably automatically hitting one of the hardest barriers for us to overcome. Let me share 4 verses with you and ask you the question of what do they all have in common? John 3:16, potentially the most famous verse in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shouldn't perish but have eternal life. Or you've got Romans 5, verse 8. God demonstrates his love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. John 15, greater love has no man than this, that he should lay down his life for his friends. Or perhaps Galatians 5, when we look at the fruit of the Spirit, include love, joy, peace. What do they all have in common? You might say to me, well, they're all about love. Did you know that the Greeks had 8 words for love? And all of those passages I've just read to you all use the same root Greek word, which is the word agape. And when we want to understand the Father's heart and the Father's love for us, then it's important for us to distinguish between agape love, which is selfless, unconditional love, a choice of the will, with the second type of Greek love, which is philia love, which is an affectionate, platonic love, a friendship, if you like, brotherly love. When we're encouraged to, to meet together, we're talking about brotherly love. But those verses, which we so often quote, actually have a deeper meaning when we realise they all stem from the root word agape. In John 21, we have a great example of Jesus showing love. Peter, one of Jesus' inner circle, the 3 closest disciples to Jesus, had this horrific moment where, having stood up and claimed that he would die for Jesus, he denies Jesus 3 times. Jesus says, before the cock crows, you'll deny me. Peter does that and is absolutely heartbroken. And after Jesus has died and after the events of Resurrection Sunday, Peter, in all of his brokenness, returns to what's familiar to him. He goes back fishing. And then there's this great encounter where Peter's fishing and Jesus stands on the beach and shouts out to him to put the net on the other side, and they catch so many fish, going back to a previous miracle Jesus has done. And Peter knows it's the Lord. He loves Jesus, and he puts his cloak on and he jumps out the boat and he goes and meets Jesus. And Jesus is there. He's cooked breakfast on the beach already. And into this, Jesus has this conversation with Peter where he restores Peter. And he asks Peter 3 questions. And the first 2 times Jesus asks Peter, he says to Peter, Peter, do you agape me? In other words, Peter, do you love me unconditionally? But Peter, in his brokenness, can only reply, Jesus, you know I philia you. You know I have this friendship with you. And so the 3rd time, Jesus meets Peter where he's at and says, Peter, do you philia me? And Peter says, Jesus, you know I do. And Jesus 3 times asks Peter the question and restores the things that have broken Peter, the 3 denials that he's had. Jesus gives him 3 opportunities and 3 places for restoration. Let's pause here for today and put ourselves in Peter's shoes. How do you think he felt having denied Jesus? How do you think his relationship with Jesus was when he saw him again? Can you understand some of that, where maybe you feel that you've let someone down? Maybe you feel that you've let God down. And the idea of knowing a father's love is something that you struggle with because you feel like you've blown it and you feel like you've been a failure. And yet here we see Peter, where Jesus reaches out to him and says, Peter, will you love me unconditionally? And Peter, in struggling to do that, knows that sense of God just reaching out to him and saying, Peter, I'll meet you where you are. What a beautiful picture of the Father's heart. And before we go to look at how we redeem that, can we just see for a moment how we are so much like Peter?